Hello and welcome to the F1 News Zone, the show round up all the biggest stories in Formula 1 right now. We are currently in the Qatar Grand Prix weekend, but which stories have been making the headlines this week? This week we cover all of the scenarios with the F1 World Championship. A close friend of Michael Schumacher has given a pretty dire prediction regarding the 7-time World Champion's condition. And of course we bring you all of the action from the sprint race and qualifying during the Lusail sessions on Saturday. Find out all about that and a whole lot more in today's show. If you're watching on YouTube, skip to the timestamps in the video description to watch the story that you're most interested in. So, without further delay, let's dive in. Alright, so let's talk about Formula 1. As you can probably tell by my voice and the redness on my nose, I am not feeling 100%, more like 60 or 70% to be honest. My son, God bless him, gave me an absolutely horrible cold over the weekend. Didn't feel too bad yesterday, but today it's just taken a life of its own. It's really doing its best to take me out. So, you know, I apologise if, again, I've not got the same pep. This has happened twice after 2 races in 2 of the 3 previous rounds. Mexico and also Las Vegas. We need less North American races. That's clearly what's going on here. But I'm here, as always, guys. I love talking about Formula 1. Maybe not loving talking about it as much right now because my throat's killing, but I will go through the situation right now in the points because it's what everybody's talking about, right? Everything has changed completely. I mean, like I said in my review for the Las Vegas Grand Prix, I wrote Max Verstappen off twice, not because I doubted his abilities or anything, just because the points gap was too much at different points of the season, and I just thought he didn't have enough time to be able to claw it back, even if he was performing well. He's performed extremely well. He's performed extremely well. I think he's got the joint most victories this season. I think he's got 7, which is either the same as Piastri or Norris. I think one of them's got 7 and one's got 6. So, you know, it's definitely possible right now that Max Verstappen can win the World Championship because, you know, as we know from the Las Vegas Grand Prix, double disqualification for McLaren. If it wasn't for that, I feel like the points gap would have been probably too much at that point. He still would have been in it mathematically, even with them being reinstated or not taken out in the first place in terms of the results, Norris and Piastri. But as it is, he is 24 points behind Lando Norris, which is the exact same points total as Oscar Piastri. They are both on 366. Lando Norris is on 390. Now, a question I asked before the Las Vegas Grand Prix was, how soon can Lando Norris win the World Championship? And the answer to that was during the Qatar Grand Prix weekend. And the answer to that still is during the Qatar Grand Prix weekend, but he cannot win it during the sprint race. So I'm just going to go through different scenarios, look through the results from 12 months ago, and just give my kind of thoughts on what's likely to happen at the Qatar Grand Prix. A bit of a preview before the preview. Obviously, it's on this weekend, and I do my 5 drivers preview, but this is more focusing on the championship battle specifically and what we're likely to see happen. So, right now, before a wheel is turned in Qatar, we have 58 points still available. Obviously, there are 2 Grand Prix, Qatar and Abu Dhabi. Also on top of that, the Qatar weekend is the final sprint round of the entire season, which means there's another 8 points up for grab there as well. So 25 plus 25 plus 8 is 58. Quick maths. Now, obviously, for anybody to still be in the title hunt going into Abu Dhabi, they have to be within 25 points of Lando Norris. Right now, Piastri and Verstappen are both 24 points behind him. So essentially, what Lando Norris needs to do this weekend at the Qatar Grand Prix is cumulatively together between the sprint and the Grand Prix, doesn't matter how he does it, but he essentially needs to outscore both Piastri and Verstappen by 2 points over the weekend. So he basically needs to jump both of them by 1 point for each race, 1 in the sprint and 1 in the Grand Prix. Now, of course, that is far from certain, especially given how good Piastri is in the Qatar sprint. He's won it in both of the previous 2 seasons, and how good Max Verstappen was 12 months ago as well. He won the Grand Prix. Again, he was not really the favourite to do so going into that. Of course, we had the controversy in qualifying as well between George Russell and Max Verstappen. I did a video on that at the time. I might link it at the end, to be honest. I'm not too sure, but I might link it out. but I might link it at the end if you are on YouTube. If not, look it up. The video should still be online somewhere. But yeah, he basically channeled his rage, really, his understandable frustration at that absolutely disgraceful decision by the stewards into an incredible race performance. He jumped past George Russell on the line and never looked back. Now, Lando Norris, interestingly, had a really bad weekend by his standards, of course, in the Qatar Grand Prix 12 months ago. He finished 10th. And there's worries around McLaren. A lot of people are saying, though, with the layout of the Qatar Grand Prix circuit, that it will suit McLaren more. And I agree, but, you need more than a fast car to win in Formula 1. You also need a fast driver. And right now, Verstappen is really, really quick. He's absolutely flying. Like I said, 7 victories this season, which is, I think it's equal with Piastri. I think he's got 7 as well. And Lando Norris has 6 of them, because Piastri is ahead on countback of Verstappen, so I think Piastri must have more second places. But anyway, I'm digressing there. So that's what Lando Norris needs to do. He needs to outscore Piastri and Verstappen by 2 points, and basically Piastri and Verstappen need to ensure that gap to Lando Norris doesn't go up by more than 2 points over the weekend. Now, is that likely to happen? Well, honestly, given the form of both of these two drivers in the sprint and also the Grand Prix, and also the form of Lando Norris during those races too, I think the title fight is probably going to go to Abu Dhabi. How big that gap is going to be, we don't know. Lando Norris was pretty quick in Las Vegas, it's fair to say, getting up to second place after that questionable start, let's just say, and also Oscar Piastri as well, getting up to 4th place on the road. So there is pace in those cars. In terms of their actual driving, they're pretty quick, and I know some detractors will probably say, well, they were only that quick because they ran the cars too low to the ground and it cost them performance and they got an unfair advantage because of that. And yeah, it would have helped. It would have probably helped, yeah, but I don't think it would have really changed the results. Those two were really quick anyway. I think that Lando Norris still would have got second place. He might have even got first. He might have been able to catch Verstappen, but you never know. You never know what happened there. He didn't get that close to him in the end, and obviously he backed off in the final few laps. Piastri, interestingly, did not back off because did not have the gap behind him to be able to do that to Kimi Antonelli. So, yeah, if I had a gun to my head, if I had to guess how things are going to go in Qatar, I think the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix is going to be the season finale and also the championship decider as well. I'll be surprised if Lando Norris manages to get that gap over both Piastri and Verstappen. Maybe he'll do it. Maybe he'll just dominate the weekend. He was in incredible form in Brazil and also in Mexico, which are more typical Formula 1 circuits. This is a very atypical circuit, though, as we know. It's not designed for Formula 1. The Lusail International Circuit is in fact designed for motorbikes. It's a motorbike Grand Prix venue. It's a MotoGP venue ever since 2004. It's been over 20 years now. So, the track is not suited to Formula 1. So it does kind of lend itself to that unpredictability, really. It's very open. It's very windy. It's a bit like Bahrain in that regard as well. Not too far away from Bahrain, of course. They are in the same point of the Arabian Gulf, I think it is. I'm not going to check a map to check that. Not got the energy for it. But yeah, those are my thoughts, really, when it comes to that. And just the basic scenarios around it. Essentially, Piastri and Verstappen, they don't want the gap to go up, because if it goes to 25 points, then you have to hope that they win the race, either Piastri or Verstappen, and Lando Norris doesn't score, which, okay, it's possible, but it's very, very unlikely. Lando Norris hasn't finished one race this season. I think he only... Oh no, obviously Canada as well. He didn't finish there too. So 2 races this season he's not finished. One through a mechanical error and one through a driver error as well. Unless I'm forgetting something else. I'm pretty sure those are the only 2 though. So I know obviously he was disqualified for Las Vegas, but he did finish the race. It wasn't really his fault that he was disqualified. But yeah. Anyway, guys, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. So if we're being totally honest, guys, this shouldn't come as a huge shock, really, but still, reading it and hearing it is depressing. Let's be totally honest here, because this is, of course, concerning Michael Schumacher, one of just 2 men to win the Formula 1 World Championship on 7 occasions, and of course, he was the first man to do so long before Sir Lewis Hamilton matched that feat in 2020. Now, the headline, the quote here on the F1Chronicle.com is that the public will never see Michael Schumacher again. Of course, we haven't seen Michael Schumacher in a public setting since 2013 after his incredibly unfortunate skiing accident. I think it was in the French Alps. I know it was somewhere in the Alps anyway. We've not seen him ever since then. We've not heard from him ever since then. There were rumours that he attended his daughter's wedding in Mallorca. Was that earlier this year? I think it was earlier this year. Either that or 2024, because I remember we covered that here on the channel. But nothing confirmed. Nothing confirmed for well over a decade now. And yeah, some people are saying that we're never going to see him in the public eye again, which is really, really unfortunate, to be honest. But let's have a look at this full story here, guys. Let's bring you the latest updates about Michael Schumacher, because I'm sure some people, rightfully, I understand why they would say this, will say, just leave the guy alone, which I agree with. You know, he's entitled to his privacy at the end of the day. But a lot of people want to know how he's doing. There's a lot of Michael Schumacher fans out there. The guy dominated Formula One in the early 2000s, you know. He was an incredible driver. So a lot of people will be wondering how he's doing these days, but going off of this, not too great. Let's have a look. Former Formula One figure Richard Hopkins, who developed a friendship with Michael Schumacher during their time in the sport, shared a heartbreaking belief regarding the 7-time world champion. Hopkins stated that he does not expect the public to ever see Schumacher again. Schumacher suffered a severe head injury during a skiing accident in December 2013. He spent a prolonged period in a medically induced coma and has not appeared publicly since that time. He now receives care from a dedicated medical team and his wife Karina at the family residence near Lake Geneva in Switzerland. By the way, guys, just in case you can't tell, I'm still not 100% really, but I'm definitely feeling better than I did yesterday. You guys who saw my one video yesterday on the channel will know I was not feeling too great. I'm definitely feeling better than that, but my voice is still not back to normal. It sounds worse than what it is, if that makes sense. I feel good, but yeah, I've got quite a lot of rubbish still in my system I need to clear out, basically. The Schumacher family maintains strict privacy regarding his condition. Reports indicate that even many close friends do not know the current state of his health. Only a small and carefully selected group of people is believed to have access to him. That group includes former Ferrari team principal Jean Todt and former technical director Ross Brawn. Hopkins, who previously served as head of operations at Red Bull and logistics manager at McLaren, stated that he does not see the family relaxing its privacy standards. Hopkins told Sport Bible the following, quote, "I have not heard anything recently. I understand he has a Finnish doctor, a personal doctor. I do not think we will see Michael again. I am slightly uncomfortable talking about his condition because of how secretive, for the right reasons, the family wants to keep it. So I can make a remark, have an opinion, but I am not in that inner circle. I am not Jean Todt. I am not Ross Brawn. I am not Gerhard Berger, who visits Michael. I am a long way from that." End quote. Hopkins first met Schumacher in the early 1990s when he worked as a mechanic at McLaren while Schumacher raced at Benetton. The two developed a friendship and often shared coffee breaks within the paddock. Hopkins also explained that even those with access to Schumacher will never discuss his health. He said the following, quote, "I cannot say I am best friends with Jean Todt or Ross or Gerhard. I think even if you were Ross Brawn's best friend, and you asked how well Michael was, I think even if you were Ross Brawn's best friend, and you asked how well Michael was, and even if you plied Ross with a good lot of red wine, I do not think he would open up and share. I think there is that respect with anybody who goes to visit Michael not to share anything. That is the way the family wants it to be. I think that's fair and respectful towards the family. Even if I did know, the family would be disappointed if I shared anyway." End quote. And then there's some things about the career of Michael Schumacher, about how great he was. I'm sure I did a video last year at some point, probably going over how great Schumacher was as a driver, how amazing he was. I'll probably link that at the end of this video, actually, something to do with Schumacher anyway, because yeah, he was unbelievable. Like, what a driver he was back in the day. And it's a crying shame this has happened to him. I mean, it's a crying shame that this would happen to anybody. But yeah, I do see what he's saying. I feel like it's been so long now that if we were to see something, we would have seen it. We would have heard it. It would have happened by now. It's been over 10 years. The main thing is really that I just hope he's doing well. I hope he's got some quality of your life, and I hope he's enjoying his time with his family as much as he can. But yeah, I agree with his sentiment there. I think we will probably never know. We'll probably never know how he's doing.
really. You know, that's kind of it, really. So, yeah, your thoughts in the comments below, guys, and let me know your favourite Schumacher moment in Formula 1. There's so many to pick from at the end of the day. I mean, for me, maybe doing the Spanish Grand Prix in 6th gear and still getting 2nd place, you know. It had so many unbelievable performances in the Benetton and the Ferrari over the decades. But yeah, it was double duty today in the desert of Qatar. We had the sprint race on Saturday afternoon, and then we had the qualifying session on Saturday evening. Let's look at the sprint race first, guys. Let's have a look at the 5 main talking points from the first of 2 races this weekend around the Lusail International Circuit. First of all, let's talk about Ferrari, where the only phrase that I can think of is hell, they are bad. I mean, my God. I mean, they were terrible. Don't get me wrong, they were terrible in qualifying, but during the sprint race, it all went pear-shaped, even worse than on the Friday evening session. This was absolutely abysmal from the Scuderia. Sir Lewis Hamilton qualified down in P18 and he barely made any ground during the Grand Prix, finishing in P17. Leclerc, meanwhile, started on the edge of the points for the sprint in P9, but he ended up finishing all the way down in P13. The car just has absolutely no pace. It seems extremely unstable at high speed, which is the last thing that you want around a track that has no low speed corners. It is all medium and high speed corners around this track. So for some reason, the Ferrari just does not want to work, and the results from the sprint and also from qualifying as well later today really underline that. But yeah, terrible for Ferrari. They will hope for much better in the Grand Prix on Sunday, but again, given the results in the qualifying, probably not. Let's have a look further up the grid with the guys who actually troubled the points today. And it was a tale of 2 penalties for Yuki Tsunoda and Kimi Antonelli, who both got a 5-second penalty for falling foul of track limits. Tsunoda got that relatively early on in the Grand Prix, and Antonelli got it actually imposed upon him well after the checkered flag. He did it pretty late in the actual sprint race, did Antonelli, and that meant that they didn't end up swapping positions. They stayed where they actually finished. So they ended up P5 for Tsunoda and P6 for Kimi Antonelli. And it looked as though Antonelli was going to be P5, but no, that ended up being Tsunoda's in the end, which is his best result for a long time. I mean, it's not that many points, only 4 points, but it's still a top 5. It's a really good performance in the sprint qualifying and the sprint. But from one Red Bull to the other, let's talk about the guy who's in the championship hunt, Max Verstappen, who ended up finishing in P4, and to be honest, that was really as good as it was ever going to get for him. He ended up jumping Fernando Alonso and his teammate off the start. Tsunoda didn't make it difficult for his teammate, unsurprisingly, very much moved Alonso out of the way. A very well choreographed team move, I must say. He did try and get P3 ahead of Lando Norris. He did go for a lunge early on in the race going into turn 1, but unfortunately for him, he was not far enough alongside. And from there, Lando Norris very much took off like a scalded cat. Max Verstappen went early. He put all his performance and all his effort into the opening laps of the race. Didn't work out for him, unfortunately, for him. But still, P4 only loses 1 point to Lando Norris because Norris got P3 today. He finished where he started. A decent performance, I suppose, overall for him. He couldn't get off the line and beat George Russell into turn 1. And he couldn't really get close enough to George Russell, who had an excellent day today on Saturday, it must be said. But yeah, Norris gains a point on Max Verstappen. That gap is up to 25 points. But the gap to his teammate, Oscar Piastri, down to 22 because Piastri won this race at an absolute canter. He has won the sprint race in Qatar 3 years in a row. That 100% record in the Qatari sprint does keep up for him. And this was his most dominant victory out of the 3 without a doubt whatsoever. He was excellent today. He almost won the sprint by nearly 5 seconds, and you could tell that he wasn't really pushing 100%, especially in the latter stages. George Russell just unable to keep up with him. Lando Norris unable to get by George Russell as well. So Piastri, really good Saturday for him, and it got a whole lot better as well during Grand Prix qualifying. But more on that, like I said, in the other video that'll be out very soon for you guys. But yeah, those were the 5 things that we learned from the Qatar sprint today. Not the most eventful race, but very significant for the championship for sure. Lando Norris can win the World Championship tomorrow if he gets a good result, if he wins the Grand Prix or beats Oscar Piastri by a significant margin. Same with Max Verstappen as well. We'll see what happens, guys.
Get your thoughts in the comments below. Who's your driver today? Who's your driver of the day in the sprint? I want to hear what you have to say as always. Right, let's talk about qualifying. Of course, we had the sprint race earlier today. Check out the separate video on that if you haven't already, guys. But let's talk about qualifying, the session that will set the grid for the big one tomorrow, the Qatar Grand Prix, where we could see Lando Norris crowned as world champion. But going off the results today, that might be a long way away, but we'll see what happens, guys. But let's have a look at the 5 things that we learned from this session, guys. And the first thing we're going to talk about, yet again, Ferrari. Oh my God, Ferrari. What is wrong with them? Well, I'll tell you what's wrong with them. Their car just will not work at high speed. This is a track in Qatar in Lusail that has all medium and a lot of high speed corners, and it looks incredibly unstable at high speed in both the hands of Charles Leclerc and Sir Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton again out in the first qualifying session, down in P16. Shocking for him. Leclerc again dragging that absolute bucking bronco of a prancing horse, or what should be a prancing horse anyway, into the top 10. That's as far as he went. He ended up qualifying down in P10 because he spun in Q3. The car just cannot be controlled. It looks awful. Apparently as well, according to reports, Pierre Gasly actually went up to Lewis Hamilton after this and said, man, that car looks really hard to drive. If you're driving an Alpine, which is basically the worst car in the grid and pretty much an S-Car Go on wheels at this point, you know, if you're saying, oh man, I feel sorry for you, that is demeaning. That is really demeaning. No disrespect to Gasly at all, but my God, it doesn't get worse than that. This is a Ferrari, for goodness sake. What is going on? Nothing good. Nothing good at all. But plenty of good stuff for Isaac Hadjar, though. Arguably the performer of qualifying, the man of qualifying today on Saturday. He ended up getting P6, all while Yuki Tsunoda, despite being really good in the sprint and really good during sprint qualifying, again, out in Q1, he was P16 in this session, unfortunately for him. And there's all these rumours about Hadjar being announced as a Red Bull driver for 2026 in between the gap between Qatar and Abu Dhabi. And that could well happen. That could well happen, especially if Tsunoda has a poor day tomorrow on Sunday. He very much has it all to do. Hadjar, though, in for some good points for Racing Bulls, and Racing Bulls looking like a very heavy favourite right now to get 6th place in the Formula 1 Constructors' Championship this season. Third thing we learned, Mercedes had another very solid day today. Of course, George Russell got P2 during the sprint, and Antonelli was in P6, made some very good overtakes, of course, during that sprint race. And again, they look like they're going to get some very solid points and solidify their 2nd place in the Constructors as well. George Russell got in P5, and it was P5 for Kimi Antonelli. Great day for the Silver Arrows. They'll hope to convert that to some really good points on Sunday afternoon. Max Verstappen, he was looking like a decent ways off of the McLarens, but he ended up getting P3. That was realistically as good as he could do. He was fastest of all in Sector 1. Sector 2, he was pretty quick. Sector 3, though, I think he made a little mistake, or at least he wasn't as quick as what he had been previously anyway. So that cost him. I don't think he would have been able to get Lando Norris anyway, or Oscar Piastri for that matter, but there is some pace in that car. It's looking pretty good, although he will not have his wingman to back him up, of course. Yuki Tsunoda helping him out a lot in the sprint race today, but he will not have Yuki Tsunoda available to him. Maybe Isaac Hadjar can do him a favour or two from 6th, who knows. McLarens. How did the McLarens get on? I kind of let it slip a little bit then. I was talking about Verstappen, but Lando Norris got P2. He was looking quickest, though. He was looking quickest during qualifying 3, but he made a mistake early on in this 2nd lap. And unfortunately for him, Oscar Piastri made no such mistakes. Pole again. He won the sprint earlier today, of course. He got sprint qualifying pole. He's got pole position for the Grand Prix. Piastri, I mean, I was not quite writing him off. I was saying it was going to be very difficult for him to pick himself up, but he's picked himself up. He's looking good. If he wins the race tomorrow, depending on where Lando Norris finishes, he could have a chance. He could absolutely have a chance. If these guys finish where they start tomorrow in the Qatar Grand Prix, which, going off of what people are saying about being very difficult to overtake around here, which is true, that could well happen. If that happens, that would mean that the gap in the championship at the top will be 15 points between Piastri and Norris. It's doable. It's doable. It would also mean that Max Verstappen will be eliminated from the title race. But we'll see what happens, guys. We've got a lot of laps to go. 2-stop strategy for everybody tomorrow. Remember, because of the tyre limit from Pirelli, of course. So get your thoughts in the comments below. Who's going to win the Grand Prix tomorrow? I got a funny feeling, Norris is going to do it. I do. I said this battle was going to go to Abu Dhabi. I said it was going to go to Abu Dhabi. But honestly, I think Norris is going to do it. I just got a funny feeling. I don't know what it is, but I would like it to go to Abu Dhabi. I would like Oscar Piastri to win it, but we'll see what happens, guys. Like, share, comment, subscribe as always. See you soon. Have a good one.